GG.
That's my friend! And you're found you!
Whoa, what is this? It's a video. Jesus Christ. Let's go. Let's talk about champions. And let's talk about the end of the season a little bit all in this video, but let's talk about champions first. I think champions in general, of course, it's not like they're completely misunderstood, but I feel like people they just don't even think about it, you know? And I just want to put it into like a little bit of a perspective on what champions actually are in League. In general, they're like, they look nice or whatever, right? How do we choose a champion? Let's start there, you know? How do we choose a champion that we want to play? I think people go from like two different points. Let me just take a sip from my coffee real quick. A little bit of Slurpee. What am I even saying? Okay. So I think champions get chosen for like 2 or 3 different reasons. The first one is they look cool, which is a good reason. I'm not saying it's a bad reason, but that's like the first thing, you know. You look at a champion, you like the theme, you like the idea, you go in, you have a good time. Perfect, okay? I think that's really perfect. But, and there's always this idea going around, you know, every champion can do this and that, you can climb with every champion, you can have a lot of impact with every champion, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, in my opinion, so let's get into it. The second one is not for the looks itself, but for the kit, you know. You like an ability a lot. I think that's, for example, when people play Nasus, I think more people play Nasus because of his Q than because of the way he looks, right? And I think more people play Lux because of how she looks instead of how she plays. If that makes sense. So there's these 2 reasons, and those are like the main factors, which is completely fine. It's just what I noticed in myself, of course, as well. And let's think about what champions actually are, though. I think I have 2 decent examples for what champions are, or like 2 different comparisons for what champions are. And the first one would be that a champion is a tool, right? Your goal is to destroy the enemy nexus. So, and now you're in champ select, so that's why people will tell you, you know, the game starts in champ select, because in champ select you select your tool. And a tool comes with possibilities, but also with impossibilities. If you choose to play Nasus, you cannot teleport onto somebody and give them a shield, right? That's what Shen does with his ult. So if you choose the tool of Nasus, you have a different tool kit. That's where it comes from, I think. I don't know, but you know, it kind of fits perfectly. You have a different tool kit than if you choose Chen. And it influences the game massively. Massively. Not in the way that the outcome is necessarily more difficult, but in the way that you try to reach the outcome, it influences us in insane amounts. Maybe the most. Maybe that is the most important decision. Because from the things that I've seen, you know, over the years, people who enjoy their champion, who love the kit, or the theme, you know, they just go further because they're having fun. They're trying to problem solve around. Basically, you're playing the game always through the lens of that toolkit, you know. And problem solving through that lens is, I think, what brings success. Like, that's just what it is. And there's things you can do, things that you can't do. Some champions are good at split pushing, team fighting, laning phase, objective control, like Nunu. There's so many champions, 160, and this is maybe a little bit, I mean, not controversial, but people, I think they disagree a lot. I think League of Legends does not have enough champions. And the reason for that is the tool, I mean, people bring the argument that, people need to learn too many champions, and new players need to learn too many new champions. And I get where you're coming from, but I don't think it's that big of a barrier to entry compared to the intensity of the game itself. I think people are completely capable of doing that. I think even if we're at like 300 champions, we're good to go still, unironically. Because it's already difficult learning your champion. And it's not that much more difficult to learn your champion in the relationship to the other people, like the other characters' kits. So the only way that a new champion would be a lot more difficult is if everybody would play every champion, which is not the case. If you look at a challenger player and how fast they get a grasp of how to interact with the new character, is that a good comparison for the new player? I think it actually is. It's just a little bit different because your starting point is of course different. If you have an iron player interacting with a character, like basically what I'm trying to say is if an iron player interacts with any character, it's going to be more difficult for them, right? And you have to interact with many of them to get a feeling of how to like categorize these toolkits against each other. And it's going to get easier the more you do that, and then exponentially you will understand how to interact with certain kinds of characters, because characters aren't always like 100% unique, There's mages, there's assassins, and so on. They have a little bit of gimmicks, and their toolkits are very different, but the specifics you're going to learn over time anyways, and the specifics are a lot less than the generalities for characters specifically. There's a lot of specifics, of course, and especially from the people you will meet in higher elo who like maximize the specifics, because those make the difference at the top level, of course, because it's not the big improvements anymore, it's the small ones. But yeah, I think that is why tools are a good example, because you go into a game with a certain set of tools that open the door for possibilities and close the door for other possibilities in comparison to other tool sets, other characters. I'd like to think about it like that, but there's one more comparison. And I recently got into chess. And when I started learning chess, I was like, damn, every piece, like every chess piece, is pretty similar to a champion in League because of their limitations. It's not like all of your pieces are completely separate from each other. Everyone interacts with everyone in a certain way. You have to learn how pieces interact with certain other pieces in a way. Some can bend the rules, some can be very straightforward, and some are very strong early, some are very strong late game. And I think it's the same thing. I thought it was super interesting. I was like, okay, what character would be a pawn, for example? You know what character would be a pawn? I think Nasus and Veigar would be a pawn. Now, if you don't know chess, pawns, I mean, it's pretty difficult, not difficult to explain, but I guess the comparison will kind of fall apart if you have no idea what the pieces do, but I assume you kind of know. If you push a pawn to the end of the board, it becomes the strongest piece, which is the queen, right? You have one queen at the start of the game. If it goes to late game and you push a pawn into over the whole board, you get another queen. And I think Nasus and Veigar, or even Smolder, late game characters, right? Kassadin, Kayle, etc. They're like that, you start off very weak, not useless, pawns aren't useless. You can always have like en passants or some pressure. They do pressure, and League champions can pressure as well. Early game Nasus could technically set up a gank. decently well, you know, it depends. So I think that's a fun thing that I discovered when I learned a little bit of chess, how similar it is, you know. Maybe some of the split push top laners would be more like rooks because they only go into one lane and run down that lane, you know. And then maybe knights are more like characters like Shaco or LeBlanc, where we have more freedom, more creativity a little bit, but still limited with their kits, but they're kind of almost bending the rules, you know, in what they do and what they protect, or very different in comparison to the other pieces at least, which usually just go straight or whatever. You have some sniper champions like the Bishop, you know, you have Serath and artillery mages in general. And yeah, I think thinking about champions like chess pieces makes sense. You choose the chess piece. It's a team game, of course. League of Legends is a team game, so everybody chooses their chess piece, and then you do have chess pieces against each other. So if you think about it that way, imagine your team chooses a bunch of pawns in the early game, and the enemy team chooses a bunch of rooks and bishops. Now, of course, you're gonna lose in the early game. You will. That's just the game. That's the limitations that your team chose compared to the enemy team. And it's not about trying to change your team or something, but you can just accept that there's stages in the game where you're weak and stages where you're strong. That's basically all I'm saying. Maybe that's all too complicated. Maybe that's all just floody, foozly data, whatever, you know. Makes no sense. What kind of crazy person is, comparing League to chess? Whatever. I don't know. Either way, okay, I myself think it's a kind of a nice comparison. But yeah, moving on. Let's talk about the end of the season. The split just ended, and I lost a sense of time. Like, unironically, I thought I still had like 20 days to the end of the season, and now the season is over, and I don't get it, but that's okay. Let's look at how we did. We did decent, you know. The last few games were incredibly good. I think we talked about. Actually, I don't know which ones we talked about before. I think this one. I think until this one was in the last video, and then we had 3 losses, a win, and 4 more wins. Very convincing wins. Let me see. I almost don't remember it. 5 days ago. Jesus. Yeah, we got into Emerald 4 territory, MMR wise. And it is what it is. I do like the idea of just getting strong. This was one of my favorite games played. Our Thresh went AFK, and the enemy team was full AP pretty much, with a little bit of AD from Yon. And I just went full tenacity, magic resist. It was amazing. I was completely immortal. This was really fun. I think this was one of my favorite games here. I like it. This guy was D4, what? Oh no, he's D4 now, I guess. Damn, impressive, what? Wow, he made it at the end of the season. He made a push for it. Whoa, wait a minute. Wait. He just played some completely different. He didn't even play Jace, and then all of a sudden he slaps out the 80%er at the end of the season. That is a little bit sus, I'll be honest. That is very sus. What? Whatever, doesn't really matter. Yeah, he went mid lane. He did pretty well too, so everyone did pretty well here, but it was just funny how immortal I was. You know, we had an AFK, so I do respect this guy. He just farmed, and the AD carry. He just farmed, and we could just win, you know? I like it. So, last game as well, pretty good game. Just went in and won, pretty much. We had a struggling top lane. I was able to snowball bot lane and mid lane, so it was a ride, free ride. And that's just, it is what it is, you know? It is what it is, pretty good. So this is the first season. I thought I could make a bigger push for it, but we'll see. I think next season will be a lot harsher. right? It will be a lot more games, a lot more intense. We will see failure, we will see hardships, we will see sadness, and hopefully at the end, Road to Diamond, we will see absolute greatness. Like this. Well, unlike the other guy who plays a different champion, we want to play the same champion, of course. Briar, I really enjoy her, and that's about it. You know, enjoy, and have a good start of the season. Salute.